Pokémon Legends ZA is a very unique mainline Pokémon game, in that it takes place entirely within the confines of one singular city. It's a big city, but it is very true that we cannot leave this place. So you feel like it has to do a lot to keep players engaged. I've played a lot of Pokémon Legends ZA over the last week, and so I've been running around this place over and over. And so this is a little video where I just want to have a chat about what I thought about the map. And of course, I want to gather you guys' thoughts on it too. Let's go for a walk. Literally. So, first impressions I got were that they absolutely chose the perfect city within the Pokemon world to do this kind of game with. Lumiose City has so many avenues and streets and back alleys that you can spend ages just getting lost in it. And that shouldn't be hard for me. Famously, Lumiose City is a maze I've never been able to figure out, and this game has not helped in that sense. Not yet anyway. Drop me anywhere on this map and I most likely could not put a pin on it to mark whereabouts I am. That would be a really cool game though. Lumiose City GeoGuessr. Someone should absolutely make that. I remember someone made one for GTA 5 and I'm surprisingly good at it. The thing that saves you in this city though, if you don't want to simply open the menu and quick fly somewhere, is having Prism Tower in the very center. If you're a bit lost, just run towards the tower and you'll sort of recenter yourself from there. I think Game Freak nailed the atmosphere of Lumiose City with this game. The general vibes of the city are absolutely there in full force. It's a fun environment to run around in. I think the biggest question I had in my mind in the lead up to Legends ZA's release was, with how confined we are to it, will this city environment's novelty wear off pretty quickly? It's gonna be subjective, of course. For me, it kinda has. I'm gonna be honest, I was craving a different environment after a few hours of running around constantly surrounded by tall buildings. Which, by the way, you can't help but notice reuse those same textures over and over and over. Like, I can jump from one side of the map to the other and it looks exactly the same. Maybe that Lumiose GeoGuessr game wouldn't be such a good idea then. And that could be a tactical thing to make sure the game runs well, instead of being another Scarlet and Violet situation, but it is noticeable after spending a good few hours in the game. I'll come back to that in a minute. There is an effort in here to inject some different scenery into things with the wild zones. Make it feel like you're out of that cityscape for a little while. But even then, a lot of those zones are just areas of the city that have been designated for Pokemon spawns. Some of them make perfect sense, because they're like parks and patches by the riverside, but then some of them are just regular city streets that are now the domain of Pokemon for some reason. That's gotta cause some issues, surely. There are also the rooftops, which add an extra little novelty to it. It's a cheeky little way to make the map feel bigger without actually making it bigger. I need to explore them a bit more actually. I feel like there is still quite a few I haven't checked out. But generally, it's a difficult one, because sometimes I'm really in the mood to run around a big city. I think that's what this game is boiling down to a lot for me at the moment. Am I in that specific mood for this kind of thing? One of the days I was playing, it genuinely felt like a chore. I felt so burnt out with this cut and paste, repetitive maze of a city. And another day, I was addicted to checking out every back alley and finding tiny details I hadn't come across before. That pendulum has swung back and forth so much for me over the last week or so in particular. There's an overarching tone and vibe to this game world that you're either going to be really into or really not at any one time. I do think the game looks better at night. I think the cooler tones and the light emanating from the street lamps, Prism Tower lit up in the middle, even those flat textures on the bigger buildings. The nighttime version of them looks a lot less jarring in my opinion. I like the atmosphere once the sun sets. If I was to play through this game again, I think I'd just keep waiting until nighttime to do everything, because it's just a nicer looking experience. I'm not too sure about the forced cutscene transition between night and day. That can be really annoying if you're not expecting it, and you're in the middle of trying to catch a Pokemon or something. Speaking of lighting though, that is something that does look greatly improved in this game, and just the aesthetics in general. Putting it next to Scarlet and Violet, Legends ZA makes those games look kind of washed out in places. Not to a crazy extent, but there's definitely a greater saturation to the world in this new game. So, Pokemon games have never been games you play for the graphics. That sentence is such a cliche at this point, I kind of hate saying it. It's something that, if you're looking from the outside, from a non-Pokemon player point of view, probably could make you pull back and make a funny face. The big talking point in this game is the buildings, particularly the fact that the generic buildings in this game feature flat 2D textures, instead of being 3D renders of an actual building. I hate that this happened, purely because it has reignited that whole Pokemon graphics discourse again. We seem to have had one of these catalysts in every game. Sword and Shield was this image of a tree, Scarlet and Violet was this image of rocks and water, and now we have the infamous window textures of Pokémon Legends ZA. These flat building textures don't look great, and they are everywhere on the map. No matter where you fly, you can pan the camera and see a few of these same copy-pasted textures on the flat buildings. They've created a storm of negativity on social media as well. And it is pretty damn jarring if you focus in on it. But if we take a small step back for a moment, I personally rarely noticed it while I was actually doing things within the game. Like actually doing missions. Because your attention is on what's in the foreground, not the background. It sounds like copium, it really does, but most of the times I genuinely noticed these janky textures was when I was aimlessly running around the city and panning the camera around, and that's then kind of when my brain was forced to eventually hone in on them. Again, I feel like I have to clarify that I am not defending this, especially when Pokemon has made plenty of nice looking buildings in the past. There are some in this game. This isn't what Game Freak defaults to in the slightest. I feel like it probably was a sacrifice that was made to make the Scarlet and Violet engine work without seeing what we did in those games. I keep pushing that theory. The Scarlet Violet engine was a chuggy mess, and they needed to do something to get one more game out of it before moving exclusively to the Switch 2. And that thing was sacrificing a lot of the generic building details on the map. Like I said, just a theory. I'm just like everyone else, trying my best to figure out why they could have done that when we know that they obviously can create 3D buildings. I think a big part of the frustration with this whole 2D texture thing as well is that you can't really get away from it. This is the entire map. There are a few interiors you can enter, and there's an underground sewers section of the map you can access too, but that is it in Legends ZA. And that's why I say that the novelty of this city can wear off pretty quickly. At least in those other games where there was a weird texture in places, you could get away from it. Those screenshots from Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet are specific, janky looking things that you have to go and search for, but it's stamped all over the place in this game. Like I said, I wasn't too focused on it when I was actually playing through the story of the game, but some people will probably feel different. One thing that I think really does Lumiose City an injustice is actually the fact that there aren't any ride Pokemon in Legends ZA. With this whole urban redevelopment theme going on in this game, building a city where people and Pokemon coexist, you'd think that ride Pokemon would be a perfect complement to that. But we do not have ride Pokemon. So if you want to travel any decent distance across the city, you basically have to quick fly there, because running will take a good while, and the longer you run, the slower and slower it tends to feel in your head. Or at least give us a bicycle. Or rollerblades. Rollerblades are quintessentially Kalos. Why didn't they make a return? So we could glide around the streets of Lumiose like we did in Pokemon X and Y. That's one of the more obvious things that I can't believe they didn't stick in the game. It's a mixed reaction from me for sure. This game has taken me by surprise in some good ways and some bad ways. I was excited by a Pokemon game taking place in one city, because personally I've always fantasized about a Pokemon game city looking how it does in the anime, having that same scale to it. But if you're a hardcore Kalos fan, this is probably great for you. I know if it was Goldenrod City, I'd be obsessed. So Kalos fans are eating good here for sure. But it has garnered a lot of discussion, some of it constructive, some of it not. My philosophy on video games has always been a simple one. Is it fun? Is this a fun use of my leisure time? And the answer to that for me here is, overall, yes. It's not graphically mind-blowing. That's not the draw of Pokemon, and it never has been. The draw of Pokemon games is the concept, the gameplay loop, the Pokemon themselves. If I put 100 hours into this game, which I strongly predict that I will, considering I've already done nearly half that, and my map is still teeming with side quests I haven't done yet, plus all the other miscellaneous stuff you have to do, then I'll have paid like 50 cents an hour or something. Some people might see things from a different perspective there, but that's kind of how I see games like this, that I'm excited for, but definitely don't see as a game I'll still be playing a few years down the line. But I've had a good yap for a few minutes. How are you guys feeling about the world of Pokémon Legends ZA? And does the whole 2D window texture thing bother you? Or is it something trivial that has no real effect on your experience in the game? I don't think there's one correct answer, by the way. I think all our brains work differently and pinpoint different things. So yeah, let me know where you sit in the comments. While you're down there, please do drop a quick like on the video. It's a very small thing, but it helps me a lot right now. Special thanks to our channel members here. Join the Discord to chat more over there. Thanks for watching, take it easy. I'll catch you in the next one.